Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Tuesday, August 13th. We are here live. It's time for the Power Hour. We'll get to your calls and questions here in just a little bit. If you're watching on the live stream, you can pick up the phone and dial 855 950 3835. If you're listening on the app, you can hit that call now button. Today is all about maintenance. It is the Power Hour. Got the team here from Pittsburgh Power. We'll hear from them, and then we'll get to your calls and questions. So line them up. Real quick, before we do that, I want to remind you we've got a big drawing going on today, a raffle, from now till the 23rd. So you've got 10 days. We have got 4 tickets to the Tucker Carlson live tour in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'll be there. We are giving away 2 pairs of tickets. So there will be 2 winners. Each winner gets 2 tickets. That way you can take somebody. We'll draw those winners on the 26th. The event is, what day is the event? The 5th? Does that sound right? The 7th. September 7th in Salt Lake City. Should be a great event. Glenn Beck is his guest at that stop on the tour. And all you have to do to be in the drawing is just go to the store now at letstruck.com and grab some Cardio Miracle. If you buy Cardio Miracle, you will be put into the drawing. It's a random drawing on the 26th. And we'll be giving away 2 pairs of tickets. So head on over to letstruck.com and put some Cardio Miracle in that cart. Let's find out what's going on this morning at Pittsburgh Power. Good morning, guys. Oh, boy.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
There you are. I was a little worried there for a second.
Yeah, Jordan had the mute button on there a little bit extra long.
Got it. So you and Leroy there this morning?
Leroy is on his way up. We actually have a very busy shop this week. A lot of emissions problems going on here.
Really?
We're fixing and repairing. Yep. Yeah, other shops just, I don't want to say misdiagnosed, but just can't figure it out where we are. That's what sets us apart on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of guys I talk to are running the max mileage, are the ones that are in the shop without emissions problems.
Yeah.
So it's actually, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. That's, I remember when we were first, we've been going through emissions problems for quite a while now, but when we first started, and I did some research on it, and I found, the OEM solution trees, and I kind of followed them through, and I thought, I'm not sure why these shops are struggling with this stuff so much. It's right here. And I know it's not perfect, but they put a lot of work into that. Do this, then this, then this. And there was a whole decision tree for all this stuff on how you troubleshoot it. But then I realized you take a truck into the shop, they're not doing that.
Exactly.
And, then when I really got to talking to Leroy about it, and he said, no, that's exactly what we do. And that's what you have to do. The troubleshoot, and we've talked about this, just general troubleshooting skills. And that can get you a long way, but the equipment has gotten so much more complicated. You need more than just intuition. You've got to have a system. And I was just shocked that this system exists and most shops don't use it.
The trouble trees that they set up, like what you said, is exactly that. They put a lot of R&D into that, a lot of effort. It literally tells you to dot every I, cross every T. But it also takes a special kind of technician. You have to have somebody with a mechanical background, and we can go through everybody in our shop. And I can tell you, one guy is into race cars. He works at a race car track, Adam. Every weekend he's up at the local track called Blanket Hill. Rock is our shop foreman now. He has a pulling truck. Toby has an F-150 with a Coyote V8 that's pretty well hopped up for a Coyote. Runs it on the 85, and it has to add another additive to it because of the tune. Ryan's into motorsports as well, a lot of like watercrafting and pickup trucks. And Corey is just all around a good mechanic and mechanical mindset too, because that's what it takes. I mean,
Well,
not only do you have to have the software and the tooling, but you also have to have the mechanical capabilities, and that's again what sets us apart from a lot of other shops.
I saw that firsthand when I stayed there and I spent a lot of time and I was working on my own stuff after hours. And, while I was there after hours working, I'd wander out in the parking lot and there'd be three or four or five of the guys out there working on one of their cars or talking about it. Or, there was always something going on. Somebody was turning wrenches even after work. And then what I was really surprised about, but absolutely love, is not just the mechanics that turn wrenches or gearheads. All the guys
Yeah,
in the electrical, the programming, all that, they're all gearheads too.
yep, every one of them.
Yeah,
Leroy and Nate, who's Pete's nephew, is interning with us this summer. They both have motorcycles, as well as Jr. And I'm pretty sure Alex, the fourth wheel back there, is also getting a bike too. But cars, bikes,
yeah,
anything with an engine,
yep,
it's in our DNA.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. So, what do you, other than being really busy, got anything else going on in the shop today, or anything you want to talk about?
Yep, I got a couple things I want to talk about.
Good.
Um, the shop, we've had some really interesting stuff in here. We got a 2019 Freightliner Cascadia that was towed into us from another shop because they kind of threw their arms up at it, and it had a def problem. And when we poured the side skirts off and looked around, there was literally like a volcano of urea coming out over around the doser nozzle. It had been leaking for so long that they could probably fill up, I would say, a pint jar, maybe even a quart jar, with the crystallized urea on the outside of the doser nozzle, on the outside of the after one box. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. Jordan has some pictures. I'm pretty sure he's going to be posting them up on our social media page later on for people to look at. It's phenomenal. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Um,
Wow.
we have a '06, 7, '07 Caterpillar in a Kenworth T600 in here. We're doing we put a balancer on it. We just did an in frame on it, and then the customer side, he wanted to put the balancing ring on it. So he brought it back to us to go back over it and put the balancer on, fix some wiring stuff. One of the techs back there this morning, Alex, is in our electrical department, was looking over some stuff in the computer and saw that the ECM was not reading the engine coolant signal. So he went and talked to the driver and he said, "Hey, does your temperature gauge work?" He said, "Yeah, it works fine." But he caught that from having the laptop plugged in and looking
Ah,
around and just poking around.
right,
It only takes 5 more minutes to go through that. So we're actually fixing that too, because that could inadvertently affect the fuel mileage in the future,
right.
where it's going to actually cut back because it thinks the temperature is too cold. Um, One really unique one I have in here is a 1970 Peterbilt 359 needle nose. Has the accordion style hood and
Wow.
the fenders just about where the deleted words I can't say on air that makes
Right,
a mechanic like us, because there's too high. You're either on a ladder or you're really uncomfortable because it's digging into your chest.
right.
It's just not a comfortable thing. They look cool, but they're just not comfortable to work on. But we're installing a fast fuel pump on it. Now it has an electronic N14 installed in it. Somebody else already installed, and because of the needle nose and the engine bay constrictments, it can't fit a charge air cooler. So it was basically just a direct airflow, but they retrofitted an aftercooler onto this electronic N14 from a big cam. So it actually is an aftercooled N14. It's kind of a unique
Wow.
situation if you see it. Really neat truck though.
Yeah.
Uh, have an 18 International in here with some other emissions problems. And then we have a 16 Freightliner in here. It's a glider with the Detroit Series 60. Found the exhaust manifolds cracked, which is notorious for the Series 60s. But we also found that the intake manifold was leaking severely under our boost test. And when Corey pulled the manifold off, he noticed that the head had a lot of corrosion, and so does the intake manifold. And that's something a lot of guys don't really look at too often, is the intake manifold. You think a boost is just a charge air cooler or maybe just a hose or a clamp.
Right.
It's everything system. You have to remember that the turbo's in there, the air compressor's in there, the charge air cooler, your clamps, hoses, tubing. That's all part of the system. And we've seen this more than once. The intake manifolds are aluminum.
Right.
The intake manifold gaskets are steel, and steel and aluminum sometimes corrode. You have to clean them up with a flat file, maybe use a little bit of JB Weld as like a crude version of body filler, like putty job almost, and then
Yeah.
file that down smooth to
Right.
make sure that you get a good sealant in there. But that's something that people do overlook on a lot of these engines is the intake manifold,
You,
and that's
you know,
pretty much what I.
on that note, I remember when we first really started talking about testing charge air coolers. For a lot of years, we kind of ignored the charge air cooler the way we ignored the damper. Nobody ever paid any attention to it. When you think about it, a charge air cooler is a radiator, except it only has air flowing through it. A radiator, when it leaks, it leaks. You know it's leaking, you fix it. When a charge air cooler leaks, you have no real idea that it's leaking unless you're testing it. I've seen charge air coolers that won't hold any pressure whatsoever, and yet nobody's even addressed it. So we started talking a lot about pressure test the charge air coolers. We showed people how to make their own testers. We talked about it all the time. And then this actually happened when I had the shop down in Tennessee with Robert Fitzgerald. We bought a smoke machine to try to see if we could find air leaks in the air system. And we spent a lot of money on a pretty expensive smoke machine, and it failed miserably at that. That you couldn't find a leak anywhere with that machine in the air system. We called the manufacturer and we were talking to their tech line, and they said, "Oh no, that's never going to work." The problem with the air system is you have so many small openings that the smoke drops out of the system. There's just no way to keep the smoke suspended through the whole system. And we couldn't return this smoke machine. We paid like $1,400 for it. It was a good one. So we were sitting around and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with this thing, sell it to some automotive shop or whatever. And next to us in the bay, they were doing a charge air cooler test. And Robert and I started looking at each other and we said, we could probably run smoke through the whole intake system. And that's where the smoke test came from for us anyway. And it really does make a difference. It's one thing to know the charge air cooler is solid, but you could still have a lot of other intake leaks.
Yep. We just had a lengthy conversation about this yesterday. And a lot of people don't realize too that there's creep, CREEP with aluminum. And that is when the aluminum is subjected to pressure and temperature, it's going to distort, and it takes a toll on it. It loses its efficiency.
Yeah.
Depending on composition of aluminum, whether you have 60, whatever the composition might be as far as the elements make up. But that's something that people need to realize, that this is a maintenance item. It's not just like what you said perfectly, like a dampener. It's just on there. It stays on there. No, it is something you need to take good care of and change it out periodically.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Did Leroy make it yet?
He is.
Leroy, good morning.
Why do you say it like that? Good morning.
What do you got for us today?
I'll tell you what, Kevin, this week I've been really struggling. And last week we've been on the struggle bus in the engineering room.
Uh-oh.
So we've been working on a new product now since probably last December. Sort of the idea came around last year. And then when Nate came around, we have a lot more engineering power on hand and just more people that have the time to do it. And so we've been in development of this product. I mentioned it a few times as we've, in the last couple of shows, the last several months. And we did our second round of testing last week. But the reason we're on the struggle bus is just the engineering process is tough, and it doesn't always go your way. Bruce, I think Jane actually said a couple weeks ago, she mentioned about noble failures, where you fail at something even though you really tried.
Right.
And a lot of our testing, not a lot of it, but there's a significant amount of our testing that sort of falls in the category of noble failure. And that's when you spend like 45 minutes, setting up the test, running the test, and then you look back a week later because you don't want to look at your data while you're collecting it, especially if you only have a small amount of time to collect said data.
Right.
You want to grab it all and then look at it next week. So this week we've been looking at it and we've noticed a lot of tests just didn't work out. Something happened to the data link. We lost data. The dyno numbers didn't line up. And you mostly see it when you're making the graphs. And it's not necessarily an XY relationship where you have one input and then you get this output. It's an engine, right? Like when you talked about fuel economy, what do you say? There's like 80 different things it could be.
At least.
Is that what you normally say, Kevin?
Yeah. I identified everything that could impact fuel economy and then tried to separate it out into things we can control and things we can't. We can't really control the weather, the wind, the road surface, but I tried to create a list of all the things. When I got up to around 80, I thought, okay, it's not going to matter if I make it 120. Nobody's going to pay attention to the 80 anyway, so I keep going.
Right. And any sort of testing like that can feel that way, especially like in our shop. I mean, we have a dyno and we have some equipment and things like that, but we're not a laboratory, right? So
Right.
even something like a variable that messes with our test is this truck that we had, our test truck had a weed burner on it, and it's August, and the dyno room slowly gets hotter as the day goes on. So you'll start out with a cool 70 degrees in the afternoon, and it feels like it's 110 by 3 o'clock. And if your engine's breathing 110 degree air, that's less density. That's less air density, right?
Right.
So you're going to have automatically low power. So there's just, when you try to figure out the XY relationship, but then you have, 40 variables going in, and then you're trying to look for like one specific output, you're saying, how does this one parameter change this output? Like, what's the rate of change of this one output for this?
Right.
It's been pretty difficult. The first set of testing we did, we felt like the numbers we got were pretty encouraging. Not exactly what we expected, but encouraging in a good way. So we wanted to repeat it again several months later on a different truck with a new iteration of the design. So just going through the results, it's tough. And the other thing that happened was one of our prototype parts was we had 3D printed in another country because it was cheaper, right? So just to throw some numbers at you, in lead time, we have this product, right? We have it designed on the computer, we have it modeled, everything, and it looks great. We made it on our printer, it was pretty small. I think you can print like 10 inches by 10 inches by 10 maybe tall, something like that, a small 10-inch cube.
Yeah.
The thing we're trying to make is much bigger than that. So we have to print it in small 5-inch pieces and glue them all together.
Okay.
So obviously you're not putting that on a truck. You're just kind of
Right.
like modeled something you can hold in your hand. And if you want something like that prototyped in the US, it's going to cost you probably around $3,000 to $4,000
Wow.
to have a prototype made.
Yeah.
If you have it made from a Chinese company, it costs you $400.
That's insane. That is
For the same thing.
absolutely just insane.
Now, here's the downside. You're like, oh, this couldn't be, what could go wrong, right? For $400. So we send our drawing off to the Lugans, and we say we want it made in like this polycarbonate nylon, right?
Okay.
Which is sort of a high strength, high temp, flexible material. And they say after like a week or two goes by, we submit the order, we give them our money, 2 weeks go by, and they say, it's not working out on our printer, our nozzle's doesn't extrude it very well, we're having a lot of issues. Can we recommend a different material? We want to switch to a different polycarbonate, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what it was called.
Right.
But so we're like, that's not what we wanted, but I mean, we're looking at what it is, like the material science. I mean, we're not material science, Nate and I, but you kind of look at the melting temperature and the pressure and the strength, and you can kind of say, well, it's probably got to hold that, right?
Okay.
So they finally, after 3 weeks, say, we have it printed, but the print messed up on one of your bolt holes. Like, it's kind of important to have the bolt hole, right? But whatever, we'll take it. It's been a month and a half now. So we get our print in and we start to sort of mess with it and, get it prepped for testing. We had scheduled our test truck, um, everything like that. And then it cracks. And we're like, this is a really weird thing for something that's supposed to be this strong,
Right.
for polycarbonate something to crack when we were just kind of playing with it, and not doing anything bad to it. And the more we looked at it, we were like, this is the cheap PLA. I think that's polylactic acid or something. It's some
Okay.
sort of thermoplastic, right? It's you can get it for $20 for a roll. It's
Right.
extremely cheap,
Right.
but it's just you can make a shape. And we're like, I think they made it out of PLA. So we do some really basic testing, and it's like it melts at the same temperature as PLA. So, and
Yeah.
it feels like PLA. It looks like if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it
It's a
probably
duck.
is.
Yeah.
Right. So we're like, you made this out of the cheap material, which would never survive on an engine. I mean,
Right.
if we put this on there, it would certainly explode, which would make a good video, but
Yeah.
not a great product. As one.
It was such a beautiful truck too. We had to test with too.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
A little sarcasm.
Yeah,
I
it was
caught,
a
I caught
rental,
that.
but
Yeah.
it was a like canary yellow day cab, extended frame. Like we think it was an Expediter truck at one time. They pulled the box off, but it was.
Oh, okay.
It had it was
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, we didn't buy it for aesthetics. I mean, it was.
Right.
She's a beaut, Clark, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
yeah. Oh, it's just a shame that, and it's a shame and it's really tough. Like Bruce said about the noble failures and things where you try really hard and sometimes things just don't work out. But I mean, this is the work that goes into new products and the time, ever since last year, and it's probably going to continue on to this year.
Yeah.
It's not going to be ready for release anytime soon, but
Right.
Hey,
it's one
of the things.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I was going to say several things from that story. One, I have some encouragement for you. When you
Okay.
are frustrated or confused, don't stop. You're about to make a breakthrough. You just got to keep pushing. So being frustrated and confused on a product like this is a good thing, or a project like this. You just got to keep pushing through. But usually when you get to that point that you're really frustrated or really confused, it's easy to quit then or to take an easier path, but keep pushing through. Something will happen. You'll have a breakthrough there. Brittany's call screening today, and she did come up with something good from this story, and I kind of agree with her. Noble Failure. That's an excellent name for a band. I like that. It's got a ring to it.
What kind of genre does that fall under?
Yeah, I don't know. It's got a ring to it. So I had a failure yesterday. I don't think I would call it noble because I didn't put a ton of work into this idea. And it's not the first time I've tried something like this, and it keeps failing, and I'm beginning to think that I should just give up on the idea. So one of the challenges I have on the show is no matter what I talk about, there's somebody that wants you to talk about something else. You get the comments, oh my God, if we have to talk about tire rolling resistance one more time, I'm never going to listen to the show again. Or, the catalyst or any topic I talk about, somebody will complain about it. It's just part of this business. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's why I do segments the way we do. So people know, look, if you don't like maintenance, if you're not interested in maintenance, don't tune in on Tuesdays because that's all we do. If you don't like health, when I talk about health, you probably shouldn't listen on Wednesdays. So it's kind of why I started doing that. I used to just do everything all day, kind of a free for all the time. And this really helped. Then people would say, well, good, because I don't want to listen to that on this day or whatever. One of the topics that I get a ton of pushback on from one group and a lot of encouragement from another group is politics. People who like politics want to talk about them all the time. People who don't like politics don't want to hear about them ever. That there's hardly any gray in there. So every time I would talk about politics, people would just bitch constantly. So I thought, all right, I'll create a segment just for politics then. And I even came up with a clever name. We called it The Pit, Politics in Trucking. And the whole point was during that segment, that's what we would talk about. I had to cancel it after a couple shows. really what I had hoped is that we would have discussed differences, you know, somewhat without screaming at each other and calling each other names, and just actually talk about our differences in politics. Well, the show turned out to be nothing but a giant echo chamber. Everybody that would listen to the show just agreed with what I was saying. That's really boring. So we gave that up. I think I tried it 2 different times when we gave it up. So then I had an idea. I'll do it as an X space. And we called it the Fight Club, and it was all about debating anything, not even just politics. And it wasn't about the topic, it was about learning how to debate without what we do today, which is scream at each other and call names and just keep repeating our points. So I put together these rules. We tested it. It worked really good. But I have a problem. Nobody will debate. Show yesterday for about 2 hours and couldn't get anybody to really debate anything. So it's kind of the same thing that happened last time. If everybody in there is agreeing, what is there to debate? And the people who disagree with me, mostly on social media, and I refuse to debate or argue on social media. I make my points. People can say whatever they want. And I just move on. That's a horrible way to debate. They won't come on the show and debate. So the whole Fight Club thing kind of failed again. I should probably give up on that. So, and then it seems like I had one other. Oh, yeah, I know what it is. What you're describing right now, this product. And at some point, somebody had an idea for this. And now you're going through the process of making that idea a reality. And there's a chance this product will never make it to market. You may find out something. If we knew for sure it was going to make it to market, you wouldn't have to do all this testing and development and tweaking and changing and figuring things out. And you would just build it and put it out there and sell it. Except it never happens that way. And over the years, one of the things that people have gotten upset with me about is somebody will call me and they'll tell me about this great idea they have for something. And then they'll want me to buy the idea. And I'll say, well, no, ideas are basically worthless. They have, everybody has ideas. There's ideas everywhere. This is not the hard part. Coming up with an idea for a product is not difficult at all. I can do it all day long. The difficulty comes in is bringing that product to market and making money with it. And it is really, really difficult. And people don't understand that. And they think, but this is a good idea and I'm just going to sell it to you. Well, no, you're not, because I'm not buying it, because I know what it would take to bring it to market and it may not ever make it. And the one show that when it first came out, I used to talk about it a lot because I did learn a lot from that show, was Shark Tank. And if you watch Shark Tank,
I love it.
They will never, ever buy an idea, ever. If you don't have a product with sales, you're probably going to fail on that show. That's almost a golden rule for them. It's one of the first questions they ask. After the big, long pitch, somebody will say, all right, tell us about your sales. And if you have nothing, you're probably not getting an offer.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you talked about having the idea and then bringing it to market. From the birth of the idea to where it is today, it's not the same. What our original idea was did not work out.
Right.
The heart of the idea lives on, but what actually we had initially planned did not work out. So I mean, it keeps growing and evolving and turning into this and that. And then the first round of testing, we were expecting a certain result, and we didn't get that, but we got a benefit in another area that we weren't expecting.
Yeah,
we're like, oh, well, that's not what we were going after, but this happened.
Look,
that's kind of interesting. We should go down that rabbit hole.
Well, there's all kinds of great examples of that. I study products and companies, and I read all that kind of stuff. Post-it notes. The note, the note you can stick anywhere and it comes right back off and doesn't leave a residue. They were working on a super glue when they created that.
I would not correlate Post-it notes with super glue.
Yeah, they were originally working on a really, really strong adhesive and ended up with Post-it notes by mistake, and they turned into a huge product.
Yeah.
There's
I mean, that's kind of,
yeah, a bunch of examples like that. We had an idea, we were testing it. Our idea was totally wrong, wouldn't work at all, but we discovered several things while we were working on it.
and I mean, and I think that's what we're trying to stay focused on is just because it's our idea, it works in our head. Like, you just have to go with the numbers and what the data tells you. If
Right.
it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right. Well, we will look forward to hearing updates on this in the future. I'm sure it's going to be going on for a while.
At least a while, yep.
Yeah. All right. I was going to say something, but I'm not. We're going to say good morning to Bruce. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. I was trying to talk, but you weren't listening, so I guess I was still muted.
I was so enthralled with the story there that I just I almost forgot you were there waiting.
That story that Leroy just told is one of thousands.
Yes. Yeah.
Thousands.
You've done this your whole
When
career.
John
Bruce.
Walco and I,
You have all kinds
John
of products.
Walco and I were trying to figure out how to use the high lift cam and a big cam without the mechanical variable timing. We were working on an old white constructioner, the butterfly hood.
Oh yeah.
I heard Eric call it the accordion hood.
Right.
It was a butterfly hood, diamond plate check fenders that would just eat into your knees. We didn't have knee pads back then. We had that camshaft in and out of that engine 5 times.
Oh, man.
And now people will call up, what's the right cam key to use for this big, to put the high lift cam in a big cam without MVT? Oh, no.
You're right.
We'll sell you the parts and we'll sell you the cam and we'll tell you how to time it, which way to put the arrow, but I just can't give you that information for free after what we went through. And this has been going on for 48 years. So
yeah.
Back to the Post-it note. I heard the guy that worked for 3M sang in a choir in a church. And he would, let's say they're going to sing 6 different hymns. And he would open up the hymnal book and put pieces of paper in, and then they would fall out. So he went to work one day and made the first Post-it note, and that way it wouldn't fall out of the hymnal.
I wonder why Post-it note has garnered so many stories. I've read several stories about Post-it notes, and it seems like such an odd product to have so many stories about.
I want to know who made the first wire tie, the plastic wire tie.
Yeah.
Now, that was a great invention.
Didn't
and then
Velcro
did you hear how
didn't Velcro come out of the space program? I think it did. I think I read that story is somewhere. Velcro was developed during the NASA space program years.
Maybe to keep stuff from flying around in a spaceship.
Now there's
no gravity.
There's a funny story about that with space, and it turns out that it's not necessarily true, but I've repeated it many times in seminars and talking because it makes a good point, whether it's true or not. So the story goes that NASA spent like $100,000 to develop a pen that would write in zero gravity, because pens need gravity to work.
Yeah.
And they needed to be able to write in space, and they spent all this money and they developed a pen. And then the joke is that the Soviets just use a pencil.
Well, when I was 19 years old and midnight dock foreman at Motor Freight Express, I had to go and check several of our 40-foot van trailers and write down what's inside, and the clipboard's up above my head. And I would come in and say to Don Ickes, who was my supervisor, great guy, I said, these damn ink pens don't write. And he said, that's because you have the clipboard up above your head.
Exactly.
He said, it works off of gravity.
Yeah.
And I said, is that right? So the pen has to be pointing down.
Yep.
To work. See, you can learn from a lot of people. You just have to listen.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
The lady that invented whiteout back for typing years ago.
Yeah.
And Every time you'd make a mistake and you're typing a page, you'd have to start all over again. She took flour and clear nail polish and mixed it together, and she's correcting her typing. So the girl beside her wanted some of that, and it spread throughout the office, and it spread throughout the building, and it went into the next office building. Next thing you know, she's got a business mixing flour and clear nail polish.
I love stories like that.
And yeah, me too. And there's another reason why I'm saying this. And she eventually sold out to Borden for $35 million. And this was back in the 80s or early 90s. $35 million was a lot of money.
Oh, it still is.
The reason we're saying this is I had a guy call me yesterday with an invention. It sounded too good to be true. And I placed 2 calls into him. I want to hear about this. It's supposed to gain 3 gears in the Rocky Mountains and stay at 180 degrees. I said, well, that's a lot of horsepower to gain 3 full gears going up an 8% grade and stay at 180 degrees when it takes 16 degrees to fully open the thermostat. But we're going to find out what it is, because it might be something. And, you know, just like meeting Jane Gates.
That's right.
With the max mileage fuel-borne catalyst. I mean, here was a lady with a product. Worked 35 years on it. And wow, what a product it's turned out to be. And while I'm talking about that, I've had 2 calls this week from people with emission problems. I said, are you running the max mileage catalyst? They said, what is that? So I'm delivering a gallon today over close to DC to a customer that has a Freightliner with a 1 box and less than 500,000 miles, and it's having issues. So back to inventions.
Yes.
Owner-operators, a lot of owner-operators have a lot of thinking time, and they come up with a lot of specialty items. And it might be a tool, and it might be sitting in their garage. And if it's a tool they think they can market, I'd like to hear about it. Let's take a look at it and see if it's something that we could have manufactured and market.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of ideas, and Shark Tank brings them out. It's a phenomenal show. If I was young again, I'd try to be on Shark Tank multiple times with different things. And the mistake that I see people make, and they come on, they have this great product, and they want a Shark Tank to come on for 5%. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're going to take these people that are multimillionaires and their brains and their whole group that's behind them. It's just not that person. You're getting their whole company.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why don't you come in there? And if I had a product and they wanted 51%, I'd say sold. You got it. Then you ride their shirt tails.
And then if you're that smart, go on and develop other products, and you're going to learn through the process of what they do and how they bring it to market. I learn a ton just from watching the show. I've learned a lot about, sales ratios and retail marketing, things I know a lot about business, but I've never done a lot of retail. So I learned a ton about, retail and margins, and it's a really educational show if you watch it. If you really pay attention, I've learned a lot about business and numbers. And, Bruce, you said if you were younger and you might go on that show, we talked seriously about applying for that show with Monkey Brittle. I thought Monkey Brittle was a unique enough product. You can't find anything else like it. And finding a really unique food product that was that healthy is really unusual. We talked about it, but ultimately we didn't license the products. We were going to license that product from them, and it was going to be ours, and then I was going to take it on the Shark Tank. That ended up not working out, and they gave the license to somebody else. And he's doing a great job. He's got it into Whole Foods, and it's really starting to spread. We are still the only online distributor, but I really thought that product could have made it on Shark Tank.
Especially if you had put your cinnamon almond butter on it or whatever. Was that cinnamon honey or cinnamon almond butter?
maple cinnamon, maybe the nut butter. I think we have a maple cinnamon. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, we have several, but it's good stuff. All right, what else we got today?
Okay. I want to talk about the ISX and the X15. We still have the exhaust manifolds, the intake manifolds, and everyone's looking for fuel mileage, and there's a half mile of the gallon sitting right there, just in the two manifolds, plus lower exhaust temperatures, better airflow. So it's really a great add-on to that engine. And torsional dampers. I'm getting some phone calls from people that have never changed their torsional damper, and they've been running the same engine for 25 years.
Wow.
And we don't talk about torsional dampers very much because we've talked about it so much and what the torsional damper does. And it's a shock absorber to the engine, and it does wear out in 500,000 miles. All right. So I also had written down about noble failures, but Leroy has that. And, so when he mentioned getting stuff made overseas, sometimes we have to do that because an American manufacturer won't make less than like a run of 2,000.
Right.
Our mufflers are made in Canada.
Yeah.
Because the American manufacturers, they wanted to make 2,000 of every part number.
Oh.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to put that in the building.
No way. That's crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to order 10.
Right.